Welcome to the Saturday Morning Retro Podcast, episode 13, a podcast on the Rated G Network focused on retro gaming and giving ourselves an excuse to play our collection. I'm your host, Dave Rutino, and this is my co-host, Dan, the podcaster formerly known as Classic Robinson.
What's going on, man? Listen, it's my birthday weekend, right?
It is your birthday weekend, Dan. Happy early birthday, Dan Robinson.
Thank you.
He is the ripe old age of 25 plus 13. Actually, 14, I think, right? 39 this year?
No. I'll be 20. I'll be 28 in 2 days.
You'll be 28 in 2 days? I think
you only turned 28 once, baby. You only turned 28 once.
Yeah, like 15 years ago. or 10 or 11 years ago.
I think your math is off. We gotta get you
my
that
math
Donkey
is
Kong
off?
math. We gotta get you that Donkey Kong math game.
This guy who grew up playing the Nintendo, but yet is only 25 years old, or 28 years old now.
Yeah, well, you know what? I can't help it that, it was a relic in my house at the time.
Oh, I see.
The N64 was out when I was born.
Well, here's the question. You are vaccinated. I am vaccinated, right? Most of America is vaccinated. Yay. Go America. Do you have any you have any plans for the big upcoming birthday? That's the question.
I wish I did, but it's going to rain like the whole weekend.
Yes.
And actually I have something that you don't know. We did not discuss this before the show.
Oh. Well, lay it down, Dan.
Well, because I got vaccinated last week, and they said you need to wait at least 2 weeks before you're fully, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything for this birthday weekend because it's going to rain. But the following week, I'm going to Mexico.
Oh, shoot. Well, this is news.
I know. I'm going to Mexico.
Well, there you go. Congrats. Getting out of the country. Very nice.
I know. It won't affect the show because I'm actually going during the work week, so I'll be back on a Friday. Yeah. So,
wow,
yeah,
all right.
No,
well, that was going to be my follow-up question, but I was going to ask you that off camera. But that's good to know. And congrats on getting out of the country. That's going to be awesome because we all know my Mexico trip got derailed by the pandemic.
Well, you can live vicariously through me.
I'm going to have to. Send me some pictures. All right? I want to see those tasty margaritas.
I've never been to Mexico before. I've never been to Mexico, so this is exciting. This is my first time in Mexico.
I thought you've been down in the Caribbean, though, right?
I've been to the Caribbean. I've been to Rome. I've been to Africa, but I've never been to Mexico. So this is the first time.
Wow.
I'm super excited.
Wow, very nice. I hear it's very nice down there. A lot of good warm weather. It's the season to go. I think now
I don't have to worry about rain. It'll rain for 20 minutes and then it'll stop.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Very, very, very different than this weekend, which is going to be a giant rainy weekend. The first national holiday extended weekend that we're able to go out and do stuff, and we can't because it's raining.
But you know what?
It's raining tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday. Oh.
It's just like we were kids. Well, at least when I was a kid in the 90s. Growing up as a 5-year-old in the 90s. When it was raining on a Saturday. It was raining on a Saturday, and you had your honeycombs or your Frosted Flakes cereal watching cartoons. Saturday morning retro, you play some old games. You play some games.
I mean, right? Yeah, it was sure, 100%. But
so I'm probably going to get a lot of gaming in. I'm not doing anything special this weekend, but I'm going shopping. I'm going to the outlets to go shopping for my Mexico trip.
Ah, that's right. You got to get the cabana clothes, right? Get the nice button downs, the wool shirts. Sure.
Lots of t-shirts, shorts. Yep. There are restaurants. I didn't know this, but in doing some research, there are restaurants that have dress codes because they're super fancy. So
that's right.
I got to make sure I look right, but still want to maintain, light clothes because it's going to be super hot down there. So,
slacks and a linen button down and a nice pair of loafers. You're good to go.
I am super excited. I got to say. I wonder if Mexico has any GameStops. I doubt it.
They do.
Any retro gaming stores in Mexico?
They do. I mean, you're gonna get Spanish variants of those games, and
that's fine.
I think they're still. Well, I don't know what region that would be, because it's technically North America, but it's in Spanish. So,
you gotta have an English section, right? Like, you can put it in English if you want.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But I know you're going to find out, and you're definitely going to report back and let us know.
I'm definitely going to find out, but I'm going more to the tourist areas. So I'm probably not going to be any retro.
You don't think you're going to see a GameStop along the beachfront? No?
No, I don't think they have GameStops in Cancun.
All right. You'll see. We'll see.
All right. Well, let's get this show on the road. We have an awesome show this month. Okay, we're gonna dive deep in our backlog. I'm gonna talk about Ratchet and Clank, and Dave's gonna talk about Peacekeepers, which I'm super excited to hear about because I know it's on Nintendo Online.
That's right.
I played it a little bit as a kid, but is it a game? Dave is gonna tell me, he's gonna convince me to go back and play this game because I love my beat 'em ups.
Yep.
But let's start the show with this time in gaming history. Okay, I love this part of the show because it sort of takes me back, right? It's like getting to a portal back, and let's go back to 1992, May 5th.
Oh, that's a good year, Dan. Good year.
Wolfenstein 3D was released. By the way, I wasn't born yet because it's 92 and I'm 25. All right, so
you got to stop with this narrative. You're gonna confuse the fans.
I was actually 10 years old when this happened. Well, no, I was 9 going on 10. My birthday was May 30th.
All right. I would have been 12 at the time, yeah.
Wolfenstein 3D was released. Mm-hmm. It was one of the major reasons for the popularity and success for the running gun, or what we call FPS, first-person shooter style games.
Wow, they called it running gun at the time, huh? They didn't codify the term first-person shooter. Interesting.
Nope, it was running gun.
Right. And
then 1 year later, Doom came out.
Right. So I remember playing this game 1993. That's when I got my first 486 PC, IBM PC, 100% IBM PC compatible computer. It was a 486 with 1 meg of RAM and a DX33 Intel chip processor. And a graphics card with 1 meg of memory, maybe even less than that. And I remember because my neighbor came over, who was a computer whiz. My mom's like, "Oh, we're gonna go ahead, Ricky. We're gonna go, Ricky, come over and like set it up for you." And they like helped me buy it. They kitted it out with everything, and they got a CD-ROM drive, and they like brought their computer over and they hooked them up computer to computer, and they're like, "We're gonna give you a ton of games. Don't worry about it." And Wolfenstein was one of those games. And dude, it blew my mind. And I know this was the game that you and your dad played, right? This was like
me and my dad played the hell out of this game. Mm-hmm. Like I loved playing this game on the it was let's preface, this was a PC game. This is a PC game. Okay, yeah, it did come to consoles later on, but I played that.
Oh, it did. Yeah, it did.
Yeah. I own it. Actually own it on the SNES, which it's not the best way to play the game. No. And I also have this I actually have Doom 2 on SNES. Definitely not the best way to play that game, but I have fond memories of playing this with my dad. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know about because obviously you're Wolfenstein, you're playing against the Nazi, you're fighting the Nazis. I didn't really know a lot about the Nazis and World War II and Hitler, so this was like sort of my introduction into that.
Oh.
To learn about that. I mean, come on. I wasn't even 10 yet. I was 9.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, you had to know about like World War II and.
Well, I knew you hear about it, mm-hmm. right? Like you hear about it, but like it wasn't like something that I mean, come on. We're talking about 1992. No, they're not talking about Nazis and Hitler every single day. You hear about it, but you don't.
That's true.
But you don't know about it. I know more about the Gulf War at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know about the unrest in the Middle East in the Cold War. I know more about that than World War II because we're not really talking about that a lot. At least in school, they didn't talk about that a lot. But I knew it happened.
So
this was like this was like sort of my venture into that world, and it was just awesome. I loved playing this, and I love like finding all the little secrets they had, the hidden secrets, the hidden doors.
Yep. It was super cool, and it wasn't the first person shooter. There was a couple of other games, I think produced by id Software, I want to say like Caverns of something or other. There was a couple games, and maybe like there was a Commander Keen game in 3D. There was definitely a couple ones before that, but they weren't Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein really like kicked down the door, and they're like, boom, here it is, birth of a new genre. Suck it, all right? And everybody took notice, all right? They're like, oh my God, what is this game? We haven't seen anything like this before. And then next year, they're like, you thought Wolfenstein was good? Here's Doom, right? And Doom was like on a whole nother level, all right? Because it just had like more weapons and more monsters and better graphics, and it technically had like elevation to it, right? It looked like they were like tall levels and enemies that would be above you, and just all like this crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, like you have to respect greatness. Like Wolfenstein it was amazing, right? Anybody who owned a PC at that time was playing this game for sure. Crazy.
And still kind of crazy to think that I was a PC gamer first.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, like in the NES, I was like, yeah, I'll play my NES. I got Wolfenstein Corridor 7.
Sure. That came out a little after this, yeah.
Yeah, and Doom. I was playing all those games. Yeah, so, Dave,
crazy.
It's that time in the show where we talk about, did you get any good pickups this month?
I got a couple. You know, I know I talked about, I think I may have talked about it on here too, but talked about it on the regular show a little bit. I was really trying to get my deck done to do some home improvement and all that. Deck is complete. Good. Weight lifted off my shoulders. So now I can get back to retro collecting. And I picked up a couple of games, which you may say, hey, PS4, it's not really retro, is it? But we like to consider anything that's not current generation retro, right? Because it's a little bit older. So I ended up picking up R-Type Final 2 for the PS4, Doom VFR for the PS4, or the PSVR, I should say, and the God of War collection for the PS3. Those are a few of the few notable games out of the lot that I picked up recently. So
God of War collection, definitely a good. That's a good find. Where did you find that? Did you get that at GameStop?
Either that or Goodwill. I can't remember. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I got it for the right price. I'll say that. So,
a lot of my pickups, have just been scattered as far as eBay. I don't do Craigslist anymore, and I do
really
occasionally hit up a garage sale. Like they randomly will be a garage sale somewhere like close by, and I'll just take a look.
But you always like scrounge through the Craigslist just to see, right?
No, I haven't actually been on Craigslist in a while. I don't even know Craigslist anymore. Yeah, it's been a while.
Why is that? Is it because you're pretty much thinking that you're not going to find anything good? It's all going to be overpriced stuff or stuff you have already, or is it something else?
It's a combination of that, and also Craigslist. A lot of times, you know, I guess when we used to do it back in the day, where we would have to go, like, you know, it's a garage sale, and we got to go see them, or they want to do an exchange. And it's a trust issue. It's a trust issue thing too. I have trust issues, Dave. Come on, I have trust. I'm only 28. I have trust issues. I don't do I trust
28 plus 11, but yes.
Yeah, do I trust you to send me the game, to ship me the game? It's a Craigslist ad. Come on.
Oh, right? No. Craigslist stuff is always in person. I never have people ship stuff via Craigslist. I go, we will meet up either in a public place or at a garage sale, or if somebody's selling it outside their place. You know?
The last time I went on Craigslist, which probably was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
The person was like, "No, I'm not meeting. I'll ship it to you." And I was like, "No, that's not happening."
Well, so, I mean, that's just an immediate red flag that they're trying to scam you. Yeah. I mean, you know, there's like no way around that. There are ways to do meetups where you can distance yourself. I mean, you've seen people do it on like YouTube all the time, right?
But then here's the thing: do I really want to meet anybody in you know during these times? Do I really want to meet somebody?
If they had a little Samson, you would.
Oh, 100%.
Well, there you go. So then it's not about that. It's just about.
I take the risk. Exactly.
Exactly. So it's not about safety. It's about the right
It is
game.
about safety because how often are we really going to see a Lotus Samson on Craigslist? Probably never.
You never know. You never know.
You never know. So I haven't really used Craigslist. So this is a combination of Lukey, JJ Games, which is back. Welcome back. I wish they had the same inventory stock.
Well, they're working on it. They had a major flood. That was the thing, right?
Yeah. So they're building it out. So I got Independence Day for the Saturn. Complete. It's a unique sort of like shooter, right, for the game for the Saturn, but the game is still just trash. But it's a unique style game. I definitely want to try it, but I don't think I'll put a lot of time into it. Sega Rally Rev. So for the PS3, they actually came out with Sega Rally on the PSP, which I think I own that one as well. This was a GameStop find. Again, when you go to GameStop, always ask for a printout if they have, a printout of PS3 or 360 or DS games that they may have in stock. You take a look. Just turned out that they had it complete, so I picked it up. Pretty super cheap price. This Super Monkey Ball didn't have it in the collection. Definitely wanted to have the original in the collection for the GameCube. That was a Lukey find. Oh,
that was a GameCube launch title. Out of one of the 6 fantastic games at launch.
American Gladiator for Genesis, complete.
That have you actually played it yet?
I haven't, but I watched the Genesis version versus the SNES version.
Oh, the sound effects in that game. My God. It's like someone's being murdered.
Oh, I mean, come on, it's American Gladiator. You not remember the show?
I do. Yeah, it was not that violent. They would just fall off onto like pads.
I know.
Yeah, somebody messed up with the sound engineering.
And now it's and then it turns to a video game. So they had to make it where you were dying.
God, dude, it's terrible. Yeah, if you want to laugh your ass off, make sure you turn the sound down a little bit. But look up clips of the American Gladiators game. They went a little wild with the audio engineering.
And then I got a Sega Soccer Slam for PS2. Mm-hmm. I got Conan for the 360, which, by the way, the remake movie, that was, 2011? 2012? That movie, no, 2012. That movie sucked.
The one with Jason Momoa, Aquaman, right?
Yeah, with Aquaman, yeah. That movie sucked.
Wow.
The game also was trash, but, I mean, I got it for like $5 at GameStop, so had to pick that up. Bomberman Hero for N64. That was a Bomberman game that was more like a platformer than a Bomberman game, if you remember. So that was
vaguely, yeah.
Vaguely. That was super interesting. Definitely love to have this in the collection because it's something different, right? They veered from the path of the norm, and I love when they do that. You take chances. So I want to play this at some point. Death Row for the original Xbox. Don't have it complete, just disc only. But that's fine. I'm cool with that. And
was Death Row the like running race combat game? Is that what Death Row was?
Death Row for the Xbox. I mean,
or was it like a car combat game?
This was definitely an Xbox. This was an Xbox exclusive. But this was it was like wasn't it like sort of like a dodge? Yeah, no, you were right. Like a dodgeball type style game.
Interesting. Okay.
And it was an Xbox exclusive. I mean,
made by Ubisoft. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like it's kind of like Rollerball without the rollerblading, and yeah, it's combat, and then you gotta score. Oh, weird. Okay. Huh.
I mean, it was the reason why you need to own an Xbox.
Yeah, that's the game. Everyone was buying it for Death Row.
That's the game.
Oh, wow.
And then
that takes me back.
And then I got Superman for the NES.
Oh boy, better or worse than the N64 version?
Oh, anything's better than N64
yeah,
version.
I remember the NES version not being great.
Oh no, the NES version is terrible. I mean, it has potential, right? It does have potential because you know, you're Clark Kent and you're Superman, which was awesome. But just the gameplay mechanics and
what do you do as Clark Kent?
Dodge bullets and projectiles.
Oh my god!
And then you can turn into Superman.
Oh,
This
weird.
wasn't an AVGN. I don't think AVGN did an episode about Superman, but somebody else did an episode, a YouTube sort of series about Superman. It just wasn't a great game.
No.
But it was better than N64. I'd rather play this game than N64 version. Yeah,
N64 version. You'd rather play anything but the N64 version. That's
N64 version was unplayable. Ever. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was one of the worst games ever. Rushed out the door.
So.
Buggy as hell. Ugh.
All right. No Triple R segment this episode. And trust me, it will come back. Don't worry. We have a lot of great ideas for some Triple R segments. But Review Tech USA did a video on this topic, and I thought this would be interesting to talk about on a Saturday Morning Retro show, because this sort of ties into what we do on the show when we sort of semi-review and talk about retro games. And the question was, do you need to finish a game for you to actually put out a review?
Oh, wow. That's a very interesting and deep question. All right. How much of a game do you need to complete to be able to give your opinion on it? And you know, you asked me this before. We kind of talked about this behind the scenes a little bit, so I had some time to think about it. I definitely have some thoughts, and you gave some good thoughts on some things, and I kind of had to think a little bit. And
well, I give you the short version of, you know, because I honestly, you really didn't give me an answer, so I'm kind of, you know, I'm really looking forward to what you have to say about this. But to me, it depends on who you are, honestly. If you are an IGN or a GameStop, if you're a sort of a major, or what we would call GameSpot, sorry. If you're a major video game outlet, like, you know, like IGN's like the CNN of video game news, right? So I expect you to review the game thoroughly in every nook and cranny and actually beat the game. I mean, if you're a movie reviewer, do you need to watch the whole movie? A professional movie reviewer, yes, I think you do.
Well, I mean, if you want to give your opinion on any movie, because what if it all comes together in the end? Like I think, case in point, The Sixth Sense, right? The movie doesn't really make any sense until you see the big twist at the end, and then you're like, oh, and then you start seeing all the little bits, and you go, okay, there was some process here. It was kind of thought out, but up until that point, it's kind of a mess, right? You're left super confused. You're like, what's going on? You're interested, but like without that ending, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you're IGN, I expect you to know everything about this game, and you know, completionist style. I expect you to know all the ins and outs, especially if you get the game before it comes out. You have plenty of time to dedicate resources to finishing the game.
You technically have about a month. Yeah, that's usually what they
a month or a week, depending on who the developer is, right?
Right. Well, the thing of it is, if you have a week and they give you Skyrim, you're not going to finish Skyrim in a week.
Then it's not going to be a review. It's going to be a review in progress.
Right. Exactly. Right. And that's
which is why they do it that way. They do. Yeah.
I mean, you have to. You kind of have to. Yeah.
But I think if you're a YouTuber, a regular YouTuber, I wouldn't expect you to finish the game, because to me, and this is just my opinion, a YouTuber is more like barbershop talk, right? Like it's the regular Joe or the regular person's sort of, you know, opinion on something, and they may not know all the facts or have everything, you know, together, but it's sort of the general consensus of what everybody thinks. So
well, that's interesting that you say that, because you're making a distinction between YouTubers and journalists, where I wouldn't necessarily do that. I think you can come at it from different perspectives, and you can say, I'm gonna review this game in this particular light, right? Like, you can say, I'm gonna look at Skyrim and I'm gonna compare it to its contemporaries and see how it holds up in that way. You know, does it meet, exceed, or fall short of what other games in its surroundings are? Or I'm gonna be the drunk dude that kind of gets drunk and plays the game and, you know, see how I like it and whatnot. And that's kind of one way to do a review. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily make the distinction between the two, though. I think because it's more of just the medium to me than it is the type of person who's doing the review.
Well, put it. I'll take your example, right? You can have the drunk gamer review or whatever you want to call it. If you want to put a theme on it, right? You can have the hot pepper gaming review. But it all goes on. Does that person like sometimes like IGN will have someone do a review in a game and it's like, I know that's not their style of game. So their opinion on that game means less to me than someone that I know. I'm waiting to hear their opinion on a game, in a podcast, or maybe if they have their own YouTube channel, because I know they love that game. So again, it goes to, if a YouTuber maybe, hates fighting games, then I wouldn't listen to them if they're going to review the new Mortal Kombat game, or revert. Don't listen to me if I review an RPG. Because I'm not an RPG guy, right?
Right. So, but I think if you're coming at it honestly, right? Or let's go ahead and take a movie reviewer, right? If you're a movie reviewer, and you only like action movies, which would be weird because you should be able to appreciate most, if not all, genres, because you understand all the filmmaking and you can respect certain aspects.
Well, I think it's the reversed. I think it's the reverse. If you're someone who's not much of an action movie buff, but you're gonna review the Marvel movies, I'm probably not gonna listen to your review, regardless.
Well, but I think you need to be honest about it. You need to kind of review the movie as it is, right? Just because you are or aren't a fan of the genre, you still have to come at it with, okay, does this movie does it have a good story? Are the characters interesting? Do they go deep into the backstory? Do all the little side stories resolve? There's certain things you can kind of look at a movie and go, well, does it hit these marks? Right? Does it have a good story? Is it telling something interesting? And then you can kind of put your own personal feelings into it too. It's like, well, I like this or didn't like this because of XYZ, but I understand that it's a good piece of filmmaking. It just wasn't my cup of tea. That's a perfectly valid way to review something, right? And I think maybe you could say that for the guy who doesn't like Madden games or who doesn't like football. You can go look, this is a very well polished game. They put a lot of new stuff into this season, more than just a roster update. But ultimately, football's not for me. But, if you are a football fan, I would recommend it. All right. You could couch the review like that and still be honest about it. Like, hey, this isn't normally my genre, but these are the positive aspects of it versus what they had in the previous year. And I think I could get some value out of it in that way.
True, but that football fan, I would rather listen to someone who is a football fan and is a fan of football games, because they're gonna focus on the nuances, right? They're gonna say, well, the differences between Madden last year and Madden now is that you could do these tweaks that you couldn't do last year, right? And you could do, throwing the ball or setting up a play feels so much easier now than playing the game last year, opposed to someone who isn't a football fan, isn't a football game fan, a Madden fan, right? Probably won't focus on those nuances because they probably won't even know about it.
They wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, and I would say no matter what, you got to do your research, but it does make it a lot tougher when you're not involved in the genre, right? So a lot of those things may end up passing you by, even though you're trying to do an honest review of what the game is.
Yeah, because if you didn't play Madden 2020, you won't know the biggest differences the small tweaks, the nuances that they made in 2021.
Yeah,
right.
It's an uphill battle to do that review for sure. I would say honestly, like in a general sense, no matter who you are reviewing the game, I don't think you need to finish it. I think you need. Well, here's the thing.
What if the game comes together at the end, just like a movie?
Well, possibly, but I mean, when you're dealing with a game like Skyrim, like it's huge.
It's never ending.
Yeah, would you actually expect someone given a short amount of time to be able to finish it? No. I mean, you would want to get. I think really what it comes down to for me is that you need to play enough of the game to get a good feel for what the game is, and if it's a game you would want to continue to play. Right, because it's all about the enjoyment factor, right? It's all about, am I having a good time playing this game? Why am I having a good time playing this game? And really kind of analyzing those things and saying, okay, well, I think this game is good or this game is bad because of X, Y, Z. And if you've only put a few hours in and you can't come up with those answers, then you can't do the review, right? Whether you get to the end of the game or not. It could be a 5-hour game, could be a 50-hour game, I think you need to put enough time into the systems, be able to talk about it intelligently, and put together a 500,000, 2,000 word review or whatever it is, and go, here's my thoughts on this game, and here's the rating I give it. All right, I don't know if the ending is as important as the journey for a video game, right? Because with Skyrim, I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I never beat the game. But I could write my thoughts about it. I could totally do a review on it and tell you what I liked and what didn't like about it.
Well, then I feel like I come at it from this perspective. Death Stranding. You tell me all the time, because we both got it when it first came out. We both played it a couple of hours that first day, and you told me, yeah, you got to keep going. You got to keep going. After the 10 hours, it gets even better. It gets even better. Where if I would have just played the first 3, 4, 5 hours, I'm like, it's not that, it's not that great. It's not for me, maybe. It's a
very slow start, though. It's a very slow start.
Where that reviewer wouldn't know that if they would have gave up like me after 5, 6, 7 hours.
Well, I think you gotta. Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta put more time into it. That's kind of a unique experience.
But you won't know that unless you beat it. You won't know to say that unless you actually beat the game.
Well, I don't think you have to beat it. I think you have to get more than 3 hours in the game, right? You have to get to where you get the vehicles. Once you get the truck and you actually gain mobility in the game, then it really starts to open up a little bit. So if you can get to I'd say chapter 4 or 5, then I kind of think you can talk about it. But that's kind of a unique experience, because that's a kind of a new genre, which we all kind of agreed, the Stranding or FedEx delivery guy game, and it does a lot of weird stuff.
I love my FedEx games.
Yeah, I mean that's like a real unique experience, something that people haven't really played before. So a lot of people were kind of like, what is this mess? I don't understand what this is. And it had a really wacky story, which I think was the main driver to get people through. But when you look at something like Assassin's Creed, right, you can go all the way back to the first or Assassin's Creed 2 maybe is where they really codified the genre. From Assassin's Creed 2 to Valhalla, the formula is more or less the same. They just keep adding new systems on top of that. So for me, I would say learn what the new systems are, run around the game world a little bit, get a good feel for it, do all of the intro missions and get into the meat of the game. And then I would go and say that's enough. Maybe it's good to beat the game to get context. Okay, this is a 30-hour game. And, it can be up to 60 hours with all the side quest stuff. And maybe you do need to beat it to be able to say those things. Here's how long it would normally take. Is it worth beating the game? Is it worth going to the end of the game? There are other things you can talk about for sure. So I'll give you that. It would be better if you completed the game, because then you can talk about it 100% honestly in every aspect of the game, because you got to the end of it. So
I'm just saying, I expect more from more professional in the big time outlets than I do the YouTubers who, yes, there may be YouTubers who want to be more professional journalists, and there are YouTubers who have a theme, like the Drunk Gamer or Hot Wing Gaming or something along those lines, right? But to me, the YouTubers are mostly, barbershop talk, where I hold IGN, GameSpot, those outlets at a higher standard.
So you don't put the YouTubers on the same level.
I don't put them on the same pedestal.
Reviewer.
I don't put them on the same pedestal as I do the IGNs, unless they tell me they want me to, unless they put themselves out as this is what I am, a professional journalist, and I'm going to tell you every nook and cranny like IGN will tell you, right?
Yeah, then I guess they're not really a game reviewer. They're just kind of a casual gamer that's like, here's my YouTube channel. It's correct. It's different.
And I'm not undermining them by any means, because again, certain people have the genres that are their favorites, and I will pay more attention to the things that they are more interested in. Again, don't listen to me when I talk about RPGs, because I'm gonna trash it, because it's not for me.
Yeah, exactly. You're not coming
especially
at it
if it's not an action RPG.
You're not coming at it honestly. You're like, I don't like this. You're already coming in it with a negative attitude. I'm not gonna like this game.
I'm not going to give you the nuances because I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. See, you got to look, if you were getting paid to do it, you would care. And that's the difference.
Well, they wouldn't pay me to do it because I wouldn't want to get paid to do it. I wouldn't be able to do my job effectively.
Right.
So that's what I say. So yes, it all depends. The answer is it depends on who you are. If you're IGN, yes. If you are not, if you're just a YouTuber, then no. Mm-hmm. I don't expect you, but I do expect you to play. I do expect you to play a certain amount of the game, a couple hours. You can't just cut it on and cut it off.
No, you gotta be able to you gotta experience the game, fully. Yeah, 100%.
All right. So with that said, why don't we take a break? When we come back, we're going to dive deep into our backlog, and we're going to talk about Ratchet and Clank and Peacekeepers. And we're back. All right, let's dive deep in our backlog and let's talk about some retro games. So I'm going to go first because I'm super excited to talk about Ratchet and Clank, the original Ratchet and Clank. I'm not going to lie, I was excited when I chose this game because I played and beat the remake on the PS4 back in 2014, I think is when it came out. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to play the first game. And I've never played this game before.
Really?
So, I've never played the original Ratchet.
Wow, that's that's
I've only played the remake.
Well, that is the first game remixed, but okay, yeah, not the OG one though.
I mean, we just got through talking about nuances. There is a lot of nuances between the remake and the original game.
Sure.
But just for some context, this game came out November 4th, 2002. Insomniac Games developed the game. Sony was the publisher. Mm-hmm. It only came out. It was Insomniac Games' first game on the PS2.
Right. Right.
I want to say this is sort of like a buddy 3D action platformer. Mm-hmm. And I played the original game on the original hardware. I played on my original PS2.
Of course. The regular PS2 or the slim PS2?
I played on the slim PS2.
Okay.
So I do have the Ratchet and Clank collection on the PS3, but I didn't play that. And maybe when I play the second one, because I definitely want to play the second one, maybe I'll play it on the PS3. But Insomniac Games, after they made Spyro the Dragon, the series, let's take it back. If you remember, it was the two biggest series on the original PlayStation was Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, right?
They were big. Well, I mean, if you discount Final Fantasy, sure. Come on now.
All right. Well, yes.
It was the best-selling game of all time for years. Final Fantasy VII.
It was, but it was I think Crash Bandicoot was like one of the top 5 selling games on the PS1. I think Spyro was like right there too, top 10.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy of all time, like any console. But
I queued you up.
I'm just saying.
I queued you up for that one.
I'm just saying. You have to give. Yeah, you got to give shine to the champ. All right, you got to give shine to the champ. But yes, they were both crazy good series. So Insomniac coming at it with a very good pedigree. The first 3 Spyro games were chef's kiss. Very good.
Yeah, and the first game that they wanted to make for the PS2, they codenamed it I-5. And it was
really?
Sort of like, yeah, it was sort of like a Tomb Raider style game with a female protagonist with a stick, and they sort of codenamed it. They had 2 codenames. I-5 was sort of the working name, and it was like woman with a stick, because you had a stick.
that should have been the title, Woman with Stick.
Where you were beating enemies with it, but they thought it would be too boring for younger players, so they went back to the drawing board and used sort of a reptile, like a gex or a gecko. With a tail, and then it sort of morphed into a anthropomorphic feline character that we have today as Ratchet. And they made him a handyman, and they kept the stick part and just changed it into a
wrench, right?
A wrench, yes.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to have robots in the game, or maybe make him into a robot, and they decided against it and gave him a robot companion named Clank. And while they were developing the game, they shared the graphical engine from Naughty Dog's Jak and Daxter series.
Wow.
Well, the original Jak and Daxter. It wasn't the series. They weren't. It wasn't a series yet.
Right. They just put the first one out. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Jak and the shooting mechanics in the game, Naughty Dog used in Jak and Daxter, the second game. Mm-hmm. So they definitely did some cross sharing in that. So it's a little backstory.
Huh.
So how different it would have been if they would have kept with the woman on a stick thing, and we would have had a who knows what it would have been named I-5 internally.
Right. It could have been awesome. Could have been great. It could have been great.
But they went with the space thing because they like Star Wars and they wanted to do something in space. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, remember at the time, this is 2002, so they were in early development, early 2000s. Everybody needed a mascot. We were still sort of in the mascot phase, right? We were sort of at the tail end of the mascot era.
Right. And everything was moving like to 3D, right? So you had Spyro, mascot, Bandicoot, the mascot. Later on, you would get, Vex and Sphinx and Ty the Tasmanian Tiger and, tons of other knockoffs. But this was one of the first, 3D mascot games that really kind of took off.
Yeah, so I knew about this at the time, but this is when I sort of where I sort of turned away from games a little bit, if it wasn't sports. Mm-hmm. So I knew about it, but I never played it at the time. Mm-hmm. But it's super cool to see that they had a Tomb Raider style game that they were working on, and it turned into another mascot 3D action platformer. So the story-wise, I play games for story. The story is sort of, cookie cutter. This villain chairman, Drex, or Drek, plans to take over a new planet. Well, his planet's dying because it's all industrial, right? Right. And his species is dying. So he wants to take resources from other planets, which in turn destroy other planets. Where, Clank is a robot that sort of can, think. He's a robot that they threw away because it wasn't working properly because it's thinking on its own. And he crash lands into this planet, and he finds Ratchet, and Clank convinces Ratchet to help him in his mission to find the famous hero Captain Quirk to help them save the universe. The thing that the nuance, the difference between the remake and the first one was Ratchet and Clank really didn't get along, and they didn't get along in the first game, the original game.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, in the remake, Ratchet wants to be a hero. He wants to be Captain Quirk. Where here, Clank and Ratchet just don't. They get along in the beginning, and towards the middle of the game, they hate each other. Clank wants to save the universe, and Ratchet just wants to explore the universe. He wants to get off his planet because he's a mechanic. And where Ratchet is sort of holds some animosity towards Clank, and then Clank is holding information back from Ratchet. It's kind of crazy for a 2002 game, story-wise.
That's complex, yeah. For a game that's made for kids too, right? It seems a little layered. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely layers to that. So I thought that was super interesting as I was playing it. I was like, wow, they're really talking to each other like they hate each other. It's like, when I get through this, I'm done with you. You're trash. Right? So I was like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
From a gameplay perspective, it's, what do you want in a 3D platformer, action platformer? It's a platforming game. It's a platforming game, but it's more combat focused. Right? Like, you're not jumping on enemies' heads or anything like that. It's definitely more combat focused with the stick, woman with a stick, or the wrench, which is your low-level weapon, and you do get a low-level blaster. It offers a wide range of weapons and gadgets, which is awesome. I mean, you get the jetpack, you get the slingshot, which you have to upgrade, by the way. And there are over 20 weapons, like the bomb glove, which is awesome.
I remember the weapons being A, super unique, and B, kind of the highlight of the series, right? Because they were really kind of like, isn't this the one that has like the disco gun? Is that this one?
No, not in the first one. Not the first one. Okay. You do get it in a remake, though.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah, I remember there was one that like made everybody dance. Which...
No, but the cool thing is you can upgrade your weapons. I mean, they have over 20 weapons. You can upgrade. Every like planet has like a vendor where you like right where your ship lands, and you can go, pay to upgrade your weapons. The best weapon in the game costs a lot of money, and you're gonna have to really grind for it. And it's called the Rhino, which is just an acronym for "Rip You a New One." And if you want to beat the boss, it's the best game. It's the best weapon to have. But
you need the Rhino.
Yeah, but it costs an exorbitant amount of money, and you really got to grind to get that. You probably won't even get that on your first playthrough. The weapon that I really like, besides the destroyer, which is like a rocket launcher, is you throw a bomb and it releases like these little piranhas that will go and like destroy an enemy that's near you. Like I love that weapon. So the different array of weapons is the sort of the gimmick of the game. Like, you have to upgrade your weapons. Now, the thing that I don't like is when you switch your weapons, it leaves you open to attack.
Oh, sure.
If you go on the circle wheel, I mean, this was early days where we had the circle wheel to switch weapons, which we still have today.
Yeah, by the way, that's a pretty common UI element.
But it does pause the game in certain games. You do pause the game when you're doing the circle wheel, and this, it definitely doesn't pause the game, but because it leaves you open to attack. So what I would do is or you can easily get around that by just actually pausing the game and going into the weapon select screen and then selecting your weapon.
I see.
So there is a way around it, but it's kind of like you got to pause the game, right? Instead of it just doing the weapon wheel and it automatically pausing for you. So that brings a extra level of difficulty to it when you want to switch weapons for harder enemies when you get to a certain part of each level. So it's not a collectathon. I thought it would be. This is an early 2000 game, right? The late 90s, early 2000s, you had to collect a lot of things, and they do have collectibles in this.
Well, sure. I mean, Rare was big on that. All the Banjo games and Donkey Kong 64, and even the first Jak and Daxter had a bit of collectathon-y stuff in there. So it was kind of like it was almost expected from this genre. But you're saying it wasn't really the main.
It's not Donkey Kong 64, right? You don't have to collect everything. I mean, you can collect certain like the gold bolts if you want, right? Because they're hidden in each planet, each level. But you really want to destroy boxes, kill enemies, and get the bolts, because the bolts are the currency, and the more bolts you have, it's just like money. You have more bolts, you have more money. You can upgrade your weapons, and each weapon, the highest upgrade is like to get the gold standard to it, right? So,
what do what are the gold nuts give you though? The gold bolts, are they different, or are they just more currency?
No, they're different. I mean, there are collectibles. I know they unlock like cutscenes or something along those lines. Okay. But I don't really care about that stuff, so I don't go for the gold bolts. I mean, I have like I think when I was done, I got like 3 gold bolts, which is nowhere near as many as you can get.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't big on that. I just wanted to continue to progress my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the mechanic of using the different weapons and the wrench or the stick. When I found this out, I kept calling it the stick. In my mind.
Right. Girl with stick. I love it.
You can unlock multiple planets at the same time, and you can choose which planet or level you want to explore first. Right, and each world has its own theme. Right, just like any other platforming game where each level is a theme. You have an ice level, you have a volcano level, space level. Each planet will show you sort of the objectives you have to go and sort of finish. And it sort of gives it replayability because it's kind of like a Metroid light style, right? Where you go to a planet, like there's a planet, it's a gas planet, and Ratchet doesn't have a gas mask, so Clank has to play that planet, and that leads you to do something else in another planet that you beat, right? But they had 3 objectives. You couldn't do the other objective because you were missing a hoverboard or something, right? And then you go and you beat all of the objectives in that level, then you get a gas mask. Now you can go back to the other planet and play as Ratchet because you have a gas mask now, right? And you could you could explore that level. So it's sort of Metroidvania light. So that's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, interesting. What about the? Well, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just saying I had a blast playing this game. I thought maybe it wouldn't hold up right now, but because the mechanics are so simple of it's an action style platformer with different weapons, it most certainly holds up to today.
Right.
I had a blast playing it.
It has a good gameplay hook, and the controls are tight, right? The story is what it is, but I had more fun listening to the banter going back and forth on the original one than the remake, because in the remake they're pretty, they were pretty solid. In the original one, they hated each other for a half the game. Right, and then you beat just like I said, there's a level, the gas level, where you actually beat it at you beat one of the objectives as Clank, and you get a story bit, and you're like, well, I'm not going to tell Ratchet because then he's going to go crazy. So let's stick to the plan. And it's like now the whole time I'm thinking about, so when's the cutscene when Ratchet finds out and he gets pissed? Like, right. Where's that turn? It's like, how could you?
Yeah, and it does, and he's like, I'm done with you. After this, I'm done. Like, I'm like, real? Wow! Like this didn't happen in the remake. So I thought that was cool. The thing I really didn't like about this, my two pet peeves. One, the swimming sections sucked. I'm sorry, I died over and over because the swimming mechanic sucked. You had to hold the button down harder to swim harder.
Oh, they use the pressure sensitivity?
They use the pressure sensitivity. You got to hold X down harder to swim up harder, and hold square harder to swim down harder. It was just ridiculous.
Game developers, and more importantly, console manufacturers, sometimes ideas sound really good on paper, but in execution, not so great. This is why we don't have pressure sensitive buttons anymore, because it's just too much.
I thought I was doing something wrong. I died, I want to say, like 20 times in this one section. Earlier in the game, too. We're talking about early in the game. I watched a walkthrough, and the guy's like, you got to hold it down to swim fast. I was like, what?
Yep. That was all the rage. Pressure sensitive was all the rage. All the sports games had it, and some of the fighting games had it even. It was ridiculous.
I barely made it, by the way. So I felt like they made that part, or those swimming sections, they made it to where you're swimming hard, and you on your last breath to when you get to the top. And I was like, it worked if they wanted to put me on the edge of the seat, but I was pissed off because I was like, this was ridiculous. I would have been pissed off back in 2002, and the lack of checkpoints. Because that section that I'm using this as an example. There were many examples of where checkpoints, they needed to have better checkpoints. that part where you kept dying, where I kept dying as far as I couldn't swim fast enough or hard enough, I had to do that whole half a level over again 20 times.
Right.
Just to get to the part. Yes. The frustration was real, my friend. I almost rage quit this game at first. Jesus. And I said, no, I can beat it. And it was gratifying when I actually did do it. And I was like, I never want to do that again.
Well, the thing that I wanted to ask you about before was presentation-wise, like graphics and sound. Did it like, I mean, granted, this is a game from 2002, right? It's literally going to be a 20-year-old game next year, which is crazy to think about. Was it still like, the graphics still pop? Was the sound still good? Was it enough to be like, yeah, I can get back into this?
Well, mind you, I played on the PS2 Slim. And I played with regular AV outs. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So,
okay.
Not a modded PS2 with HDMI. If that was the case, I could have just played it on the PS3 and played the collection. Where the only difference was graphically, it would have been graphically better.
Right.
So the graphics wise, it was fine for its time. Right. I played on a tube TV, so it fit. It fit graphically. It all fit. It was
4:3 and all that. Yeah.
No issue. Okay. Music. Nothing to sing home about, right? Like, it was nothing memorable about it.
Nothing to sing home about? I don't think I've ever sung home about it.
Really? You never heard that term? You never heard that term where it's memorable because you're singing it as you're going home? You never heard that term? That's like an old school term.
Sorry, Dan. I think you're just making this up right now.
No, I am. I'm serious.
You write home. Nothing to write home about.
Write home, sing home. I've heard sing home. I've heard it.
All right. This is news to me. Maybe I'm just not as cultured as one Dan.
Maybe it's a Southern thing. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe.
Well, you know what, Dave? I got to tell you, I'm gonna surprise you on this. All right? I'm gonna open your mind to things. Okay. Everything that you know has been made up at some point. Somebody made it up.
Well, yes, but I mean, just because you say it doesn't mean it's a thing.
It was a thing. Well, it's a thing. It's a thing that
It's a thing now. It's a thing now.
It's a thing I used to know.
Okay.
But anyway, no, I mean, the sound was fine. It was nothing. I mean, the music or sort of the music on every level, definitely nothing memorable that I can remember. But it wasn't anything egregious.
Yeah, see, I thought Insomniac would come to the table with something a little better. That's a little upsetting,
They put all their focus on the 20 different weapons and gadgets.
Right. Well, there's something to be said about good gameplay, right? And that was able to get you through. So,
so at the time, this Metacritic was a thing, in an infancy stage.
It was young.
Metacritic score was an 88. User score an 88 as well.
Wow.
PlayStation Magazine gave it a perfect score.
Of course they did.
The lowest score that I found was 70 from GameStyle. I couldn't find an article.
GameStyle?
The article's not. Yeah, the GameStyle is still around apparently. I went to the website.
Is it a magazine or a website?
I don't know what it was at the time, but it's definitely a website now.
Wow, interesting. GameStyle. Okay.
I couldn't find the actual article, but they did give it a 70. So that was the lowest. That was the lowest score I can find.
Interesting. Okay.
If I had to give it a score, I would give it an 8.
Nice. Sure. Yeah. All right. I mean,
it was a really good game. I enjoyed myself. I didn't like the pressure-sensitive buttons. I didn't like that part, and the lack of checkpoints. Really, I had to ding it for the lack of checkpoints because there were certain levels where I had to do over again, and I was kind of pissed I had to do the whole thing over again. But it was I have to score it of its time, right? At some like I gotta take I can't ding it too much because I gotta look at it from a 2002 perspective.
Yeah, understand where it came from.
But it was still a great game, and it still holds up, and I would recommend anybody pick it up and play it, and maybe play the PS3 version. Don't play the PS2 version like I did.
And the game's like pretty cheap. I think you can get it for like less than $10 for a complete in-box copy. So not too hard to find. Or if you want to get the updated version on the PS3 or the remake on the PS4, many ways to play, right?
if you want to get it right now on Lukey, game only, $15. And so,
it's gone up a little bit. Okay, but still, $15 is still a pretty good price for a fairly lengthy game that's still holds up. It's pretty good.
I would say you could probably find this on eBay for less than $20 complete.
Mm-hmm.
So, and honestly, it would be better just to get the PS3 version, right? The collection, so you have all 3 games.
Right. All right.
So definitely recommend this.
All right.
So Dave, tell me all about Peacekeepers.
Let me tell you about Peacekeepers, Dan. Let's get a little background info on Peacekeepers. Came out December 17th, 1993. This was a holiday release. It was a week before Christmas in Japan. North American release of March 17th, 1994. So shortly after, they localized it. Developed by Jalico, if you remember them.
Wow,
published by Jalico USA, right? Yeah, makers of the Bases Loaded series, right? Among other games. Released on the Super Nintendo, not on the Genesis. It was a SNES exclusive. It's a standard beat 'em up game in the vein of Final Fight or Streets of Rage, right? And I played it on the Nintendo Online, on the Super Nintendo game on the Nintendo Online, so I got to play it on the Switch. I did play it with the modern controller, and there were save states involved when I ended up playing this game. So, a little background info on the game itself. Peacekeepers is part of a series, so it's the final entry in the Rushing Beat series in Japan, right? In America, the original game was Rival Turf, which came out in 1992.
I have that game. I remember that game.
Yeah, and then Brawl Brothers was the sequel in 1993, and then Peacekeepers.
I have both of those games.
Right.
Peacekeepers is the only one I don't have.
Yeah, Peacekeepers is the third one in the series. Came out in 1994. So consecutively, year after year, they would localize and bring out these games and put them out as a series. So this was like the last one, which is interesting. And there were significant changes to the story, to the dialogue, to the presentation, and some of the gameplay. And I'll get into a little bit of that in just a little bit, because I do have some interesting notes on that. So as far as the story goes, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I didn't look at the manual, even though they have scans on the Nintendo Online. You can go online and look at a PDF of the manual. It doesn't really matter, because it's like a beat 'em up game, and you immediately get tossed into the start screen. I think if you let it go, it may go into some story about your girlfriend being kidnapped by this Middle Eastern organization, but who knows? It doesn't really matter, because it's a beat 'em up game.
So basically typical beat 'em up story of the time, where your girlfriend gets kidnapped and you got to go rescue her.
Yeah. It seems like it. The original 2 characters, which had various name changes. At one point, they were called Hack and Slash in Brawl Brothers, and I think in the first game they were Jack and somebody else. But yeah, I don't know. They did some weird localization stuff, and they kind of switched all this stuff around. And then I think in the third one they went back to the Japanese names, which makes it a little weird, and it doesn't necessarily bring continuity to the story, because they don't have the same character names. So who knows? But as far as the gameplay goes, it's standard beat 'em up fare. If you played a Final Fight or a Streets of Rage or a Double Dragon, you know exactly how this goes, right? A couple of key points that I thought were kind of interesting is that you could choose your own paths at certain points. Like in stage 1, you can go north, which brings you to this chemical lab. Or you can go straight across and break down the door and go to a completely different area, right? So you kind of intertwines. There's a couple of different points in the game where you can choose where you want to go. I was kind of surprised with the amount of moves, right? You take a game like Final Fight that only has 2 buttons. It has attack and jump, And that's about it. You can do like a small set of moves from that. But this ends up giving you 3 buttons, right? You have an attack button, you have a jump button, you have a special button, and you also have a taunt button, which specifically, if you hit the X button, you will just taunt. That's it. That's all it does. Beyond that, you have super moves. Right, so you get like 2 super moves per life. I think it's one of those like screen clearing super moves, right? Everyone's got their own individual super move, which is kind of cool. Beyond that, you get your dash attacks, your throws, some punch combos, jumping attacks.
Well, imagine back in the day when we had actual super move, not super moves. We had taunt moves that did nothing really.
Yeah,
It was just there for show. It's a product of its time because everything needed a taunt, right? Because you needed to show you had attitude,
right? Yeah, and they're 100% of they're 100% 90s taunt. Yeah, like too cool for school situation. It's kind of great, but also super useless. And then there's also 2 hidden characters in the game. There are some ways to unlock. I ended up looking it up. One of those characters is one of the original 2 dudes from the original game, right? So both those dudes are in this game. One of them just appears as a cameo. One of them, there's a special way to unlock. And then the other character is like a robot character, which is one of the enemies you fight later on in the game, but you can end up playing as the robot, which is like kind of cool. I'll tell you this though, I didn't unlock the other 2 characters, but I did play the 4 main characters, right? You get your kind of Axel Ryu dude who's, kind of the kind of all around guy, right? He's Flynn, right? You get this guy Al who is a little bit beefier but still can kind of like move around. And then you get Elfie, I think, or Ellie. She's like the speedy chick. She can kind of jump and move and fly around the stage, but she doesn't do a lot of damage. And then there's the worst dude in the game, this guy Prokop. He is legit Mike Hagar, but terrible because he has no dash and none of his attacks will connect. He's way too slow, and that's part of the problem I had with this game. The mechanics aren't that great. So when you try and walk up to somebody and try and punch them, they're probably going to get the grab on you or hit you, even though you're walking up to hit them. Like you can't really engage in that way. So a lot of the times I had to cheese and like get up from the top or the bottom, which will allow you to get into a hold maneuver and then you can throw the guy. And that works a lot better than doing the thing you want to do, which is your punch combo. And because Prokop is so slow, the enemies always get the first hit. And then once you're like stunned, you have to go through their punch combo and you're just going to get tossed. Yeah, which is like terrible. But the other 3 characters are a little bit better cuz they can dash. They're a little bit quicker, so you can kind of get some punch combos off. And I just kind of like them a little better too. Like Prokop was just terrible. And I guess like one of the things they changed, and I don't know why they changed it, but in the Japanese version they had sprites for all the little character pictures, portraits or whatever, right? In this one they're like rendered photos. And they look like garbage. It's terrible bad. Yeah. There was no reason to do that, right? It wasn't like they were lewd or they were way too Japanese or like they weren't American enough. No, they were just like, we're going to try and make this better. And you made it incredibly worse. So when you're on the character select screen, like they just look like dog. They look like dog poop. It's, it's not great. It's not great. Graphics are pretty average across the board, I mean, this game came out in 94, right? Came out the same year as Final Fantasy III, as Donkey Kong Country, right? There was a lot of big games, like the Super Nintendo was in high swing. They could have done
Donkey Kong Country,
better.
But Donkey Kong had Donkey Kong just changed everything when it first came out.
I know.
The original Donkey Kong. So, this graphics compared to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was like old, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we're like, we wanted those Donkey Kong style graphics going forward.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, compared to anything at that time, it was just kind of like, right? Super Street Fighter 4, Mortal Kombat 2, right? Games of that time, they all looked infinitely better. It's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with the graphics, but you're not going to be like, oh my God, this is mind blowing. All right. Soundtrack's okay. I guess in the same vein that you weren't wowed by Ratchet and Clank. It's the same thing here. Soundtrack serviceable. They actually changed the soundtrack too. It's another thing. I don't know why. They decided to switch it up. They switched up the soundtrack. They switched up some of the supers. Right? It's weird. Very, very weird. Yeah, there's a lot of choices. I don't know why. When I was kind of doing some research on it, and you kind of stack them up side by side, it's like there was no reason to localize it that way. It was no benefit to the American audience to change this one aspect of it. And I didn't think there was anything that was better about the American version by localizing it. I think they made all the wrong moves. So it's just, it's interesting. It's interesting. If I had to, I want to say this game doesn't really hold up. It's fine to play. It's in the Nintendo Online Store. Like, if you're looking to,
take it from this standpoint. If you like beat 'em up games, if you're like an old school person, like myself, or even more hardcore into beat 'em up games, is this a game you never heard of it before? Is this a game that you should try to pick up?
I mean, I would say play it. But, I mean, Final Fight's infinitely better. Streets of Rage, even Double Dragon. Thousands of beat-em-up games that are better than this game. But, all that, being said, it's still kind of fun. It's certainly playable. It's a nice, pick-up-and-play game. They give you a lot of continues, all right? You have 4 plus the 2 unlockable characters that you can play with, the branching story paths. So it's got some, it has some things going for it. But if I had to choose this over Final Fight's always going to win. No matter what. No matter what.
All right.
Yeah, thing I liked about it the most was the variety of the stages. For sure, they ended up changing up the different scenes that you were in. There's one point where you're on a plane, or you're in a chemical factory, you're on the mean streets. It's varied. Yeah. So I mean, you're always playing in some place different, especially with the branching paths. So you end up going to even more different places. You go, I went up before, now I'm gonna go left. And the worst thing about the game is the controls. Not great. Does not have great game feel. That's the other problem. Hits don't always connect. You really got to spam the crap out of throw to kind of get anywhere in this game. So it's a little bit of a downside to it. I think if they spent a little bit more time with it, they could have kind of tightened things up, and could have been a much better game.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Now, this Metacritic wasn't out back in those days.
No. The internet was barely out.
The internet was barely out, yeah. So did it ever get do you ever see a review in a magazine or anything like that? I mean, was it reviewed in maybe a Nintendo Power? Did you ever find that?
I tried to find some stuff. I couldn't find any reviews in that respect from old game magazines. I did see a lot of reviews on GameFAQs or from people doing retro reviews nowadays. I guess the consensus across the board is that the game's not great and they butchered the localization of this game. That was the consensus across the board. Japanese version is much better. And honestly, if you're going to get this game, get the Japanese version. Because there's not a lot of text.
I can tell you right now, price-wise, if you want to get Peacekeepers, Luki has it for about $66, and it's around that $60 to $80 range. But if you want to get the Super Famicom version, $20.
There you go. Get the Japanese version, Christ. Because Lord knows the dialogue in this game is not great, and it also doesn't make a lot of sense. There's one dude who speaks in Shakespearean prose for no reason. That's not in the Japanese version.
Well,
very weird.
Dave, we can't find any scores from GamePro. We can't find Metacritic wasn't a thing, and we don't know if it was scored by Nintendo Power. But those scores are irrelevant. The only score that matters is what you give it. So, Dave, what score would you give it?
I'm going to give it a score of 5.5, Dan.
Wow.
5.5. It is completely average. Yep. All things considered, it is a 5.5 game.
Okay.
Which, I mean, it's trust me, it's not bad. It's certainly playable, and I had some fun with it. You know, there are some positives to it, but there's definitely better games out there. The controls could have been a little bit tighter. The graphics didn't necessarily wow, but for a free game on the Nintendo Online, I would say.
So I gotta be honest. Be honest. This has been floating around in my head to buy this game.
Yeah.
The original game.
Yeah.
For the Super Nintendo, and I just kept not pulling the trigger because it's, you know, essentially I'm paying $70 for it, right?
Yeah.
And I want to own all the games on the Nintendo Online service. So I think because of this, I think I'm going to buy the Japanese version. And I was wrong. I'm looking at it now. I was wrong. It's you can find it 20. It ranges between $20 to $30.
Okay.
So it's not just $20.
That's still less than half of what the American one goes for, and it's a better version of it.
If I spend $66, I can get the Japanese version complete in box.
Wow, there you go. Interesting. All right, I want to know if and when you get it and your thoughts on it, because I know you're going to be playing it.
Yeah. I mean, I could play. I've actually played the game when it first was released on Nintendo Online, and I made it pretty far in the game on my first playthrough, and it didn't keep my interest. But I will say the thing that I remember that I kind of enjoyed was the variety in the enemies.
Oh, really? I didn't think there was that many.
I made it. I mean, I don't know if I made it halfway. I felt like I made it halfway through the game on my first playthrough.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, man. They were all pretty much.
I thought they were pretty interesting to me. The different.
There was only like 4 enemies, if I remember correctly. 5, maybe.
And the different levels were interesting. I thought it was pretty. Yeah. I thought it was pretty cool. The mechanics sucked. I mean, which is why you really need good mechanics in a beat 'em up game. Which is why the Double Dragon games for the Genesis never really worked out too well.
Yeah.
The hit detection was terrible in those games. But I remember I readily enjoyed it so much that I thought about buying it, and I just never pulled the trigger because I just couldn't spend $60-$70 on it.
It's a lot of money for a mediocre game, yeah.
It is, but now that I know that I can get the Japanese version, that's much better. Even though I don't speak Japanese, so I won't have no idea what's going on in story-wise. Anyway,
I don't either.
I'm gonna get
and
that.
I was reading the English dialogue, so I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Okay, no, I'm sold. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Wait, forget all of that. Forget everything I just said. I was completely wrong. I was looking at the Rival Turf version, Japanese version.
Oh, you were looking at the original Rushing Beat. Yeah.
Yes. Rushing Beat Sherma is the third one. This game is expensive. Even the Japanese version. It's cheaper to get Peacekeepers.
Oh, well, there you go. It's the rare occasion where the Japanese version is the same price or more expensive than the American version. You want to know why? You want to know why? Because the localization was garbage. That's why.
You're looking at $70-something for this on a cheap end, where you can get it for $60, $65, even $50 for Peacekeepers.
Right.
Nah, just get Peacekeepers. Get the American version.
All right. Well, there you go. I think that's gonna do it. That's episode 13 in the books, folks. And we want to thank you guys for doing all the good stuff that you guys do, listening, liking, commenting. And if you want to interact with us, and we know that you do, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rated G for Gamers. Also, we are part of the Gaming Podcast Alliance. You can check out all of the fine podcasts featured on there at gamingpodcastalliance.com if you're looking for more gaming goodness. So, Please listen, like, rate, review, and subscribe. And as always,
keep gaming.